Yeah.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. Yesterday, we sat down to talk about good old Cotton Schwab, Klaus the Q-tip, stepping down from the World Economic Forum and leaving his post. Well, rumor is starting to speculate that Justin Trudeau is set to resign as early as this summer. And I know that this is kind of old news. People have covered this. I personally have been waiting for a little bit more pen to paper, so to speak, to clarify whether or not this is just speculation. We've heard these kind of speculations and rumblings before when it's Jagmeet Singh's going to go against the coalition. Jagmeet Singh's going to not support the current Liberal budget. Justin Trudeau's going to resign as early as like a year and a half ago. And every time they call for this or for an early election, we don't see the results. It doesn't happen. So I've been trying to be a little more conservative as to when to talk about this subject. But now we've got people like Tom Mulcair talking about how Trudeau is spiraling and how we're going to see some changes sooner rather than later. And again, I tend to follow the mainstream prostitutes that when they start talking about these subjects more and more, the likelihood that they're hiding some information that maybe we don't know about is more relevant than ever. So I wanted to touch base on what Tom Mulcair is talking about today with Trudeau spiraling and Mark Carney waiting in the wings. Now, Mark Carney, of course, being projected to be the most viable candidate to take Justin Trudeau's position, though that's not saying much. We all know that Crystia Freeland's not up to the task. We know that she's a pension person. She's simply around to milk us for everything that we have, take our money, steal it, and then run away with her golden parachute, just like Jagmeet Singh. But Mark Carney is supposedly waiting in the wings. Now, we've seen him deny anytime they ask him in Parliament if there was going to be a vote. Again, there were rumors about a month ago as to whether there was going to be a vote. What we're seeing here, though, is former NDP leaders' take on the subject. And again, I follow his take over mainstream prostitutes because this is a man who worked in Parliament for many years and understands the inner workings of the government. He writes that when the federal public service unions recently threatened a summer of discontent, again, aligning with Justin Trudeau's rumors to be stepping down, it would have been easy pickings for Justin Trudeau to clear his throat and deliver a heartfelt fuddle-duddle for and on behalf of hard-pressed Canadian voters. It wasn't to be. Of course not. Justin Trudeau would never do that. Having recently signed generous collective agreements with major public sector unions, one could have expected Trudeau's Liberal government to be given a bit of a break, but just the opposite happened. It was almost comical. A bevy of federal union leaders held a press conference and began chewing the scenery. They were outraged. The federal government asked its members to go in the office for, wait for it, 3 days a week. Now, this isn't surprising because Justin Trudeau, again, isn't one for actual work. He doesn't want to promote work. He doesn't want people to actually go to work. He just wants people to sit on their back ends and collect their money. Never mind that, but after a lengthy strike, the federal government, as employer, returned the right under the new collective agreement signed by those same unions to make exactly the same type of management call. The exceptionally competent Treasury Board President, Anita Anand, was pulling her punches and simply said it was a management right before and after the new collective agreement. Again, passing the buck. We've seen this with Anita Anand from time and time again. She simply does the same thing as Justin Trudeau. In fact, she does the same thing as all these bloody liberals. She just sits there and spits her rhetoric, her usual word salad of, I'm not going to answer questions. I'm just going to repeat the same three sentences lawyers had printed up for them to spout in their statements in order to protect themselves. The unions were having none of it and forth dark warnings, even mentioning possible action at the border and at airports, as if Canadian travelers haven't already suffered enough. Again, pushing people to the brink in order to threaten our means of travel, our means of um, taking holidays, vacations. We all know Justin Trudeau can get on an airplane anytime he wants to. He can cross the border anytime he wants to. Even during lockdowns, he was able to do those things without so much as a hiccup. They don't mind threatening Canadians with that kind of stuff. One of those union leaders, longtime Public Service Alliance president Chris Alward, decided to pack it in shortly after the botched news conference. That Trudeau would sit in the woods instead of trying to express his own outrage on behalf of Canadians said it all. There appears to be no fight left in the man. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, again showing strategic restraint, simply chose to let Trudeau twist in the wind. Very bold plan on his end, but one that's going to pay off, I think, and is reusing or refusing to say what he'd do about the 3 days at the office decision. This is where I talk about the issues that we currently have when it comes up to the next federal election. When I spoke about migrants and I talked about Pierre Poilievre not being vocal enough, again, I got no issues with voting for a guy like Pierre Poilievre. I support Pierre Poilievre in his running. However, we need to know what we're getting. This is a salesman. He's a politician. He's coming out to tell us what we're getting when we give him our vote in 2025. He needs to be very clear, and he needs to stop sitting on the fence and worrying about every little thing he says that, oh, the Liberals are going to attack us. The NDP are going to attack us. They're going to cost us our votes. I've seen people mentioning it from time to time in live streams and comments. Well, there's a reason Pierre's not saying these things. He doesn't want to lose his points. If you want to understand how being bold can really affect you when it comes to the polls, negatively and positively, look no further than Donald Trump. That's a man who's willing to speak his mind. He speaks volume on how he's going to do things. But those who understand business, those who understand economics, those who understand job creation, rally behind him. Actual red, white, and blue bleeding Americans get behind guys like Donald Trump because they're saying the words that everybody wants them to say but are afraid to say it. And we need more politicians to stand up and start giving people cold, hard facts. When a guy like Pierre Poilievre sits on the fence and says, well, I don't want to discuss it, I'm just going to let Trudeau twist, again, it's a very bold strategy that's very effective. I'm not criticizing the man for doing that, but what I'm saying is when they come to you and say, what would you do differently? Give your 2 cents. Test the waters. Let people understand what it is you're pushing for, what we're going to get so that Canadians don't get buyer's remorse. And I'll tell you honestly, anytime he refuses to answer these questions, it gets me a little concerned that Canadians are putting too much faith into a replacement for Justin Trudeau that's essentially going to disappoint and filibuster a bunch of changes that are never going to come. Now, that's not me saying they're not going to. It's the nervousness that comes with if you're so confident in this system, then why aren't you saying what you're going to do? Says there's an old rule in politics. When the opponent is busy beating himself up, do nothing to interfere. Poilievre seems to have the has seemed to have internalized that rule very well. I'm so sorry. My Lysdexia is really kicking in here. As the threatened summer of discontent turns into a summer on the barbecue circuit for Trudeau and Poilievre, there may be a few surprises to watch for. And again, I said this before, summer usually gets a little quiet. I have a feeling this year that once you see Stampede season hit in Calgary in early July, I know Pierre's slated to be here. I'm sure Trudeau will bring another convoy here, flip pancakes, look like a wiener, and then say a few words and duck out the back door like he usually does. But as for the rest of Canada over the summer, this is the second last summer going into a political season, going into a federal election. I think that these political pundits are going to be traveling the country over the summer trying to amp up their campaigns, trying to ensure Canadians that their votes are going to go where they want them to. As the threatened summer of discontent, oh, sorry, that's the same one we were on. Many of Trudeau's MPs will be doing their duty and holding fundraisers to help try and fill Liberal Party coffers in the lead up to the next election. Again, I don't think that's possible because you've seen Justin Trudeau even in places like Edmonton where you have strong NDP support and there's like 120 people there. He's not going to get the funding that guys like Pierre Poilievre are going to garner in the next in the next federal election. One newcomer, Anna Gainley, who easily won Mark Garneau's Westmount riding in a by-election, has an important draw for an upcoming event that she'll be hosting, Mark Carney. Gainey, it turns out, knows the former Bank of Canada governor very well. The two have had leadership roles in major Liberal think tanks since Canada 2020. Gainey, it should be recalled, is as close as you can come to Liberal royalty. She was a two-term Liberal Party of Canada president. She's also extremely close to Trudeau, and as is her husband, Tom Pitfield. Both played crucial roles, in Trudeau's leadership campaign. Both accompanied the Trudeaus on what turned out to be an ill-steered trip to the Aga Khan's billionaire island in the Caribbean. We all know how that turned out. That earned Trudeau a rebuke from the federal ethics watchdog for breaking the law. And again, these are the people that are backing Mark Carney. Ground level politician scuttlebutt in Montreal now has Gainey joining the ranks of those trying to give Trudeau polite hints about his best before date. Apparently, Trudeau develops spontaneous hearing problems whenever the subject is broached by senior volunteers or MPs. And again, I side with everybody who says nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to change. This guy's going to sink the ship, he's going to ride it out. The problem is that there's more people in that have interests, not just Justin Trudeau here. The pressure is going to surmount. This is, again, I've talked about it before, the Hydra biting off its own heads. If there's an unofficial frontrunner in the eventual race to replace Trudeau as Liberal leader, it has to be Carney. Sure, there are other really experienced and talented people, yeah, right, who'd no doubt try for the brass ring. Crystia Freeland first among them, but she, like Anita Anand and Dominic LeBlanc, and any other cabinet minister, will carry the full weight of the Trudeau years in every election campaign, that is a very heavy burden to shoulder. Again, they're tainted. They're all tainted, but even guys like Mark Carney are tainted. I really don't think there's any positive light here for the Liberals to gain traction, even if Trudeau steps down before our next election. It's also a burden that many taxpayers are saying they can no longer afford to bear. Against the backdrop of those union threats, it's been bearing in mind Trudeau has managed to increase the size of the federal civil service by 109,000, which is a whopping 42% since he came into power in 2015. As a comparison, Canada's population grew by 14% over the same period. In clear terms, the civil service has grown 3 times faster than the population with nothing to show for it. Recent polling shows that inflation is still top of Canadians' minds. Of course it is. Millions are going to food banks. Millions can't pay their mortgages. Millions of people are living check to check because half of their pay is going to taxation. We all know taxation is theft. Trudeau has shown no interest in reeling in the government expenditures at a time when Canadians are having trouble paying for their groceries. The discontent is showing in the polls, where the Conservatives now hold a consistent 20-point lead. The fact that Carney is the biggest threat to Poilievre was best illustrated when the Conservatives tried to invite him to a parliamentary committee because they said he clearly wants to replace Trudeau. Carney derided the performative nature of the invitation, pointing out that it had been sent to media and not to him. The Conservatives are indeed very worried about Carney, and they should be. Again, it's the backers, it's the people getting behind him. I still don't think there's enough steam to put him out front. But Carney did show up in the Senate and made short work of the appointed Conservative hacks who tried their best to corner him on the carbon tax. That's a bold statement from Mulcair. Listen, the problem here is the Senate itself. Now, a lot of people have asked me to cover what's going on in the Senate, how we fix the Senate. Your guess is as good as mine, right? Guys like Mark Carney have a lot of pull when it comes to that department. And that's scary. But it says here, Carney is from a modest background with an ability to speak to people engagingly and with deep knowledge of economic and environmental issues. Again, basically coming out on the hammer of what Justin Trudeau can't provide, even though he touts the same ethics, we'll say. He has held the highest positions in the world in both areas. Of course, the Conservatives are worried. The sophomoric fiscal nostrums of Pierre would be as quickly exposed as his climate change denial. Bay Street would take a shine to Carney as much as Main Street. Many Canadians who just want Trudeau gone could easily be convinced to give Liberals another look with Carney at the helm. And again, that's the boldest statement out of this whole article, and one that I really wanted to touch on, because that's the scary point of it, is that if Trudeau is gone before the next federal election, when you look at who decides who's going to lead this country heading into the next federal election, it's a lot of Gen Z or Gen Z. I know people get mad when I say Gen Z. But it's a lot of Gen Z young voters that are uneducated. It's a lot of social justice warriors. It's a lot of people who vote based on diehard party status versus actual policy. And I think that when you look at GTA area, when you look at Ottawa, when you look at that bottom corner of Ontario, going into the bottom left-hand corner of Quebec, that essentially decides who sits in the Prime Minister's job. If Justin Trudeau were to step down, there is slight potential. I still think it's without a reach, but again, that's my personal opinion. But there's potential for Carney, if he gets in early enough and as early as this summer, to start swaying the minds. We've seen that a very high percentage of the population of Canada seem to forget when it comes time to go to the polls all the negative and bad things that have happened in politics from the one election to the next one. And what we're going to see here are people who listen to Carney's pitches, they listen to his ideas and they start going, well, Justin's gone, we can still back the Liberals because it's not Trudeau any longer. And what they don't realize is they're getting the same bag. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think Trudeau's going to step down? Do you think Carney is the next, I guess, viable candidate, if you can call it that, for the next position of the Liberals? Give me your comments down below if it's your first time here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and it earned your subscription. And as you're hitting that button, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and a comment. Also hit your bell for notifications. Join us live here on the channel every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, where we go over things like this and a little bit of back and forth within our community. It's always great to see you guys there, and I look forward to it each and every Friday. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.